I'm Kylie, the founder of Oats Australia, and I would love to share with you how we transitioned from importing Oats for over 12 years to actually being able to supply you with pure, uncontaminated oats right here in Australia in the beautiful region of Western Australia. Hang on for the ride. It's a bit of a journey, and yes, I've called it a battle, but we did it in the end. Let's quickly rewind back to 2007. I was actually selling some flour formulas on the market, some gluten-free flour formulas called Brighter Life Wheat-Free Foods. Some of you might remember that. And they were to service my family because we couldn't have gluten, soy, corn, dairy, a whole bunch of things. So I created this formula and was selling that to stores all around Australia. And I was selling some online, and a customer actually reached out to me and said she'd come back from the US and she'd seen oats that was labeled gluten-free. And she loved them and wondered whether anybody else supplied them or whether I could reach out. I did that. I reached out to the farmers, the Smith family over in the US. They were a family of celiacs, and out of all of the people at the time who supplied pure oats, I recognised that they were the ones who started the whole campaign. From the ground, they wanted to introduce the world to pure uncontaminated oats, because they knew that oats were actually contaminated through the supply chain. They recognised that a lot of the breakfast cereals provided over there at the time were full of GMO corn, soy, and lots of sugar, and they wanted something for their family and their friends and ongoing customers that was a good, nutritious food for them to eat. Kim, our farmer in Western Australia, started his journey of being able to build a processing plant that would enable him to steam and roll the oats so he could grow the oats uncontaminated. But because we couldn't find anyone to process the product, they decided to build their own, which they did. In 2019, I met Kim in an Irish bar in Perth on my way back from Africa. And we talked all things oats, and we created a plan that would enable us around 2021 to start transitioning from our US suppliers to our Australian suppliers. Well, we didn't know that in 2020, the whole world was going to change. And that was the last time I saw Kim up until about 2022 when the borders opened again. But during that time, we pushed the project really hard. We finalized the plant, or they did, and we started to create some new packaging. That packaging we presented at a trade show in Sydney. All our distributors took the product on, which we were very grateful for, but it landed in their warehouses and the whole eastern seaboard started to shut down. And that's where the stock pretty much stayed until January next year when the borders started to open. So that was a bit of a disaster for us. We had to fire sale that product. We decided to bring in our new packaging that we had been working on, a fresh look, a fresh Aussie look for our oats. And we started to introduce that to you because simultaneously we had 2 containers stuck on LA port for 3 months. We found out that our oats prices were going to double in the US. The Australian dollar had gone down and the supply chain was a mess, along with the freight coming from the US to here was increasing by 25% every single time we placed an order. We had to make a really hard decision. So it wasn't my choice to just cut off the US product, but we had to. We had no choice. We just couldn't afford it anymore. So we reached out to Kim again and said, right, can you supply us 100 tonne a year? And he said, sure thing, we're on board. So off we went. We had some bumps along the way because we had to do this transition a lot faster than we thought. And of course, Australians didn't understand that we could now get Aussie oats grown here in Australia, which is what you'd been asking for. But I'd done such a great job of sharing with you that there was no pure oats available here in Australia. It took a little while for this new information to filter through. But we shared it on our socials, we shared it in our newsletters, and people have slowly come back on board and are absolutely loving the product that we have now. We are super proud to say that we have a full transition from the US supply to our Australian farmers. From seed to plate, we can honestly share with you that these are the oats that you can trust.